欢迎参加文化部第5届东南亚事务咨询委员会开幕式及文化论坛。今天在场的15位委员分别来自西南向10个国家，委员的专长领域涵括电影制作、表演艺术、视觉艺术、文学创作、文资保存、建筑、传统音乐等等。首先，我们请文化部次长王时思致辞。部长请。
大家早，肖老师，还有所有远从各地来参加的我们东南亚咨询委员会的委员们，大家早，大家好。抱歉，早上有点迟到，因为早上立法院临时有一个需要协商的法案，所以迟到了一点点，但非常开心跟感动，可以在这个场合见到这么多人从各地不远千里的来参加，尤其在疫情后。这大概是我们第一次以实体的方式这么盛大的举行，所以非常欢迎各位从各地来。那在疫情期间，其实我们在这个东南亚咨询委员会的这个活动呢，其实我们没有停止。那也非常感谢大家，就是我们在这个疫情期间呢，我们用文化艺术来突破这个疫情的限制哦。虽然人的肉体被隔离了，但是我们的心灵仍然能够沟通。所以在这个期间之内呢，我们在疫情期间，其实我们完成了16项的计划，包括用线上驻村的方式来串接台湾跟泰国很多组的艺术家。那驻村的艺术成果，我们也在去年在泰国的 Jim Thompson 艺术中心跟凤甲美术馆也都做了展出。那在台湾跟菲律宾的艺术史跟当代艺术的策展书籍的这部分呢，也在做催生。我们希望可以建立跨国的艺术档案。那跟台湾跟越南的传统音乐的交流，在这部分也有进展。我想等一下晚一点，稍晚的时候，我们有李委员指导的北艺大传音越南才子乐团会给我们精彩的演出。那我想这个大家就拭目以待，可以看到双方交流的成果。那疫情之后，今年是3年之后首次办理的实体交流。那大家有看到我刚刚被带到这个台子上，我本来以为要站在那儿就可以那原来我们就是用 We Are Together， 我们用艺术连接彼此，用艺术文化在一起这样的title呢，来做我们这一次活动的主轴。那希望疫情不会挡住这样的连接。那文化艺术一向是可以跨越各种的困难，不管是疫情不管甚至是战争。或者是人类各种的困境，都可以透过文化艺术来做连接。那配合新南向的政策呢，那文化部我们也很积极的跟各地的人才做双向的交流，包括视觉艺术、表演艺术、影视音文化文学的翻译等等。那在整年度来说，到目前为止，我们已经送了219组的艺文团体到东南亚、还有南亚、还有纽澳地区进行双向交流。那这3年呢，我们也带了我们的电影到东南亚来做推销。那所以大家大概有听过的，应该像《咒》啦，消失的情人节也很顺利的在东南亚的市场上来做上映。那另外还有就是文学外译的部分，包括泰语、越南语、印尼语、马来语、泰米尔语等等，那都是我们推动的目标。那我们在2019年，我们也特别在印度跟雪梨又加设了文化的外馆，这也是一个新的创建。除了在东欧我们在捷克创建的之外，我们在东南亚南向的国家里面也是我们经营的重镇。那也希望加深我们跟这些南向国家的关系。那也如大家所知其实除了透过这个东南亚委员会之外，其实台湾跟东南亚的关系是全面性的在建立当中，尤其在整个东南亚。在台湾的人口其实是持续增加，其实在新住民的比例上，东南亚人口是台湾的第1位，不管是移工或者是新住民或者是移民，都已经成为台湾社会里面非常重要的新的成员。那所以不管是因为这些新的成员，或者是因为台湾跟东南亚的这些交流跟关系，我们都希望这样的连结会更加的紧密，互动可以更加的密切。那我们在新住民的部分，我们也有担任我们台博馆的导览大使那这一类的作为，是我们希望当这些成为我们新的成员，成为台湾国家新的成员的时候，我们也可以在适时的文化跟艺术的交流上有更深度的接触，然后成为我们 新的成员的一部分，让大家互相彼此能够更熟悉，那对于彼此的沟通也能够更顺畅。那彼此的了解更深入的情况下，当然也可以形成更好的连接的关系，更强大的力量。那接下来在这一次的东南亚的咨询交流会议当中，我们除了安排像今天的文化论坛之外，还有包括东南亚独立电影的论坛，还有建筑的讲座，那也会安排各位参访个艺文场馆或者是拜会艺文的智库等等。那接下来我们是希望可以透过这些活动呢，能建立更多跨国合作，甚至是合创的这样的机会，那包括还有艺术进驻的机会。那透过比较实质的交流跟共创、共治，可以成为在文化艺术上会有新的作品，那会交流产生新的火花，那也可以让交流后的成果呢，成为台湾文化新的养分，那也会成为各位我们跟东南亚国家、南向国家来沟通的一个最主要的基础。所以非常希望这一次的大会可以举行圆满顺利，那也非常祝福各位在这一次的大会里面有很大的收获，尤其希望一切都顺利成功。那也祝福所有与会的各位身体健康，万事如意。那在新的疫情之后的时代里面，让我们形成新的联盟、新的关系、新的友谊，也一起成为新的力量。谢谢大家。
接下来，请台湾亚洲交流基金会董事长萧新煌致辞。
Good morning, everyone. 我是萧新煌，那么台湾亚洲交流基金会的董事长。刚刚这个听了王次长的一番话，我就觉得这个文化部啊，在过去这么多年来，在推动我们新南向的政策，它的功劳是非常大的。我记得在这个前任的部长，就是叫谁啊？郑丽君，郑部长的时候，他就在抱怨，他说我们文化部在文化推动上对新南向关系非常密切，可是就在中央政府并没有把文化部列为新南向的部会之一。后来我们从此以后，我们台亚基金会就把文化部列为新南向的重要部会之一，一直到今天，我们一直在跟中央政府说，新南向要所有的部会一起总动员。其实是有的，只是没有在名义上编，你们也编了预算，我觉得这个是非常重要的。所以现在我们全部的部会有23个部会属，全部在做新南向。新南向简单的说，就是以崭新的手法、崭新的目标、崭新的这个策略来推动台湾与东南亚、南亚跟纽澳的关系。这里当然包括文化艺术的交流。那我们台亚会台湾亚洲交流基金会也在这里尽了一些力量啊。那刚刚听的这个次长的一番话，说还有很多企图心要做，所以我们就更觉得高兴。那如果需要官跟我们民一起合作，请告诉我们台亚基金会，我们会做。那我觉得文化部在过去几年呢，在这个推动新南向的这个文化交流、艺术交流方面有3个贡献。第一个贡献呢，就是把这个我们台湾的文化艺术、影视的内容推销到东南亚的国家。就刚才讲说，你们文策院就在做这个工作啊。所以我想，这第一个就是把这个 cultural content 能够 sell to the New Southbound Policy countries。第二个就是这个你们这个尤其是贵司长这个司啊，做了非常多的工作，就是鼓励刚刚讲的，鼓励了很多我们台湾的艺术家、文化工作者到东南亚、到南亚，甚至于中亚，到去做文化的交流、艺术的交流。这个我想，这个是让我们台湾艺术家的能见度能够增加啊。第3个就是这个委员会，在我了解所有的部会当中，成立东南亚事务咨询委员会的只有文化部。我想这个是绝对表示是以制度化的手法来推动东南亚的交流，这一点我非常的高兴。 所以我也有机会被邀请来这个开幕说几句话，我就感到非常的高兴，表示我们是 partner 我们要将来继续合作。那我觉得这个6月2号就是这个礼拜五的上午很早9点半到10点半，各位委员会到我们台湾亚洲交流基金会去拜访。那我们到时候再跟各位介绍我们在过去6年我们做了哪些事情那在最后呢，我也希望这个各位咨询委员来自这么多国家不同的背景，有实务的这个文化工作者，有这个策展者，有艺术家，有音乐家，有电影制作者，来自各个领域，能够一方面提供给我们台湾文化部多一点意见，所以各位呢是 advisor， 是提供建议的人。第二个，各位希望能够也作为这个促成者 facilitator， 希望能够促成台湾跟你所知道的国家，或者说你知道的文化艺术领域能够交流、促成合作。第三，希望你本身就是我们未来合作的对象。文化部是一个部，当然它有更多的资源、更多的行政能力、更多的决策力，所以跟文化部合作当然是首选第一优先。如果各位要跟台湾亚洲交流基金会将来有做若干的建议我们，然后促成我们，然后也跟我们合作，我们也非常的乐意。所以在这里，我祝这个我们这个咨询委员会这一天的所有的这个议程，我看议程非常有这个怎么样促成传统艺术啦，然后这个艺术节能够合作，还有将来可以办各种的艺术活动，我想这个都是非常的重要在这里我也代表这个民间社团、民间团体的一部分，谢谢这个文化部这个这么多年来这么多努力，然后成立这个咨询委员会。这个咨询委员，我想是台湾是非常少有的谢谢各位，谢谢。
好。接下来我们邀请次长以及各国委员以及在场的贵宾上台，来共同点亮 We Are Together， 象征一起发光。好的，请各位委员将手放在这个 We Are Together 灯上，让我们一起发光，来倒数3、2、1。Thank you。那现在请次长及各位委员回座 ，Please be seated。那我们跟那个现场的观众一起合影。 OK，Thank you， 谢谢各位。我们中场休息5分钟，那现场备有茶点，各位贵宾可以移步到走廊去享用。特别提醒一下，小白公路会场是禁止饮食。接下来的文化论坛，我们将邀请委员各自从自己的专业来共同展望疫后的文化交流。第一场论坛。疫后文化振兴暨文化交流之展望，我们邀请政治大学传播学院副教授钟世芳做引言。钟世芳他是制作人、策展人，他也是经常获国内外音乐奖项及乐评的肯定。他的纪录片长片《边界移动200年》获得2014年台湾国际女性影展的首奖。他目前在政治大学传播学院任教，他也同时是泰国朱拉隆功大学艺术学院策展学程的客席讲师。那我们现在请钟世芳老师上台。
喂 ，OK， 好，大家早安，早安，萨瓦迪卡，塞拉玛巴吉。只会这2个，好，大家早安。我想我站出来好了，这里太多的阻隔，好不容易疫情结束了，我们没有边界开放了，但是我们有这个障碍物，所以我就站近一点点。好，然后很荣幸被邀请来主持今天第一场的论坛。那我其实我看了一下节目流程，我是今天唯一一位退役委员。那我其实不在第4届的委员当中，那所以我觉得非常荣幸，文化部再邀我回来。我是过去3届的委员，也是创始委员之一，就是这个 committee 的创始委员之一。那我记得委员会是在2015年成立的，然后就是透过每一年的交流，我们认识了志同道合，而且有着共享价值的伙伴们。那我觉得这个对我来说是我生命中非常珍贵的经历。那去年我们的创始委员 Tanon Chapadi 他过世了，那也让我觉得今天这样子的一个聚会更为难得。那特别是在3年的疫情之后，我们终于可以不用在 Zoom 的镜头前面说话。那我们今天的开场是大家一起喝咖啡、寒暄、谈笑。那我觉得这是让人格外珍惜的。今天是一个很特别的日子。那今天的第一场讲座是谈后疫情时代的文化交流的前景。刚刚2位致辞的长官们说了很多关于文化交流的成果。那对我来说，其实文化交流它绝对不是单向的，它是双向的。那它是相互理解跟学习的过程。那我自己从当中收获非常非常的大。好，那接下来的3位朋友们将为我们分享他们的工作、他们的经历。这3位非常重要的艺术家跟策展人，在非常有限的时间内，我其实很难把他们的资历跟成就都介绍完整，我只能精选一些。那但是在介绍他们3位以及他们今天分别要主讲的主题之前，我想先介绍他们上台。好，第一位是马来西亚国家文化委员会主席Datuk Muhammad Najib bin Ahmad Dawat. Please. 好，请拿督穿过边界到舞台上。OK, please. 好，然后第2位讲者是今天的主讲人，是曼谷 Jim Thompson Art Center 的艺术总监及策展人 Bridia Gawiwong 博士，请。第3位讲者是菲律宾大学艺术研究学系教授以及新加坡国家美术馆的馆长 Patrick Flores 教授，请。好，那我也坐下来。好。那刚刚说过，我们今天这个第1场论坛的主题是在后疫情时代的这样的文化交流的前景下发展出来3位不同的过去3年的一些策展的经历。那今天我想就是在3年之后非常难得的，他们在台北跟台北的现场的观众分享这样子的一个成果。那我想我们就先从Najib 开始他的分享，然后好，那3位讲者都有准备很精彩的PPT， 在这里面大家可以看以视觉呈现的方式看到他们的过去3年的工作。好，那我在准备技术的准备的同时，我也再多介绍一下。就是我们今天第1位主讲者，马来西亚国家文化委员会主席 Datuk Muhammad Najib bin Ahmad Dawat。那据说我就可以直接称他 Najib， 他觉得比较舒服。那我也补充一下前面的那个荣誉头衔拿督，这是一个马来西亚、印尼跟汶莱的一种国家荣誉头衔，那是对非常有地位的。人的一个尊称。好，大豆，那中文翻译是拿督。好，那Najib 他是一位创作力非常丰沛的画家，那他也在艺术教育跟艺术管理的领域，他的资历非常的丰富。那现任刚刚讲过，他是马来西亚国家文化委员会的主席，他同时也是马来西亚 Sari Cempaka 艺术村负责人跟咨询委员。那这是一个什么样的的艺术村呢？这是位于马来西亚彭亨州嘉乐的一个培育青年艺术家创作跟精进艺术艺能的一个基地。那同时他在教育方面，他也曾经担任过马来西亚理科大学艺术学院的院长，还有国立苏丹伊德里斯教育大学的教授，分别在2008年跟2015年出任直属马来西亚文化艺术观光部的国家美术馆馆长，还有担任过马来西亚国际艺术文化资产学院院长。那今天Najib要先跟我们谈一下的是他在文化交流必要性这样子的一个题目下的主张。那我们是不是就先请Najib开始？然后我也请容我提醒各位讲者，今天每一段演讲只有15分钟。那我也觉得很抱歉，因为各位的精力要浓缩成15分钟，其实是非常困难的。好，那我们就先邀请Najib。
Thank you for introducing, and our founding member have already just retired, but she's not very tired. It looks like she's full of energy. So I too am already retired. I'm touching 70 this year, and I'm still busy with my own space, with my own art and cultural program. So I'm here today, and thank you all for inviting me here today. And I don't know what to share with you all today, because I'm supposed not to be here today because I'm suffering from vertigo, the instability because of the hearings. But I managed to do, and thank God I'm here today. Just because of the program of these 3 words here, we art together. Through art, we are together actually. Togetherness through art. So it is because of art we are here today. And I was given the theme prospects for post-pandemic exchange, pandemic cultural exchange. So I'm coming up with a subtopic of the need for cultural exchanges for future collaboration, because to me, all along, art is actually with me. I started off as a school teacher and end up as a professor at the university, and then continued the ladder by holding the post at the National Art Gallery as the Director General, and now I'm heading the National Council of Culture and Art in Malaysia. But again, as everyone knows, everyone feels it, everyone experiences it, the lockdown and the post-pandemic. So the lockdown, the next slides please. The lockdown is actually, the word lockdown is about locking down everything, closing doors, closing borders. So everybody is put on a standstill at their own space. So everybody is experiencing it. But when World Health Organization declared in January 2020, most countries start locking their doors, locking their borders. Even shops start closing their doors just because everyone fears of the virus, coronavirus. The name sounds like very nice, very lovely, corona. Even in Indonesia, there's a song. The song known as the Corona is in the 90s. But it so happens to us, and we experience it. You know, the kind of fear that everybody is scared of. Yeah, living life is just once in a lifetime. So definitely everybody is scared. So when this lockdown, everybody put on hold. There's shortage of raw material, and you can see havoc everywhere in the whole world. The second slide, please. So when the post-pandemic, when the World Health Organization declared that in May 2023, hey, we can start opening up our doors. And when who declares it's opening up, the post-pandemic, but the fear is still there. The picking up of paces is very slow. Even in Malaysia, people fear. So people fear of moving out. They are so used to staying home. Like me, like home alone, home alone. So you need companies, you need friends. You need friends to smoke cigars. You need friends to go for coffee, But you are so used being locked down for 2 years, then there's no physical communication, there's no face-to-face contact. When this happens, then the friendship tends to be, tend to slow down. It tends to be not too close as before. Before we used to hug each other, but now you want to hug, you got scared. Hey, this guy got that corona, what? So these kind of things, these kind of feelings. So now we just hope that when the post-pandemic, we are hoping that we will overcome all this and start building up relationship. And Taiwan has made the first move by having it here today in May. I was here in Taiwan in December for a conference on heritage. That's another area of culture that I really love. So you can see that Taiwan have moved very fast than the rest of the country in terms of art and culture. And congratulations, Taiwan, for having and hosting this art together. So bringing us together. So moving forward, we need players in respective fields and need to collaborate to pre-plan the post-pandemic. What to plan for the post-pandemic? Is it just going back to the old the old kind of thing that we used to do, before the pandemic. So the whole industry, we need to rope in more people to be involved. So we got to bring in education, galleries, collectors, business players, and this can only be led by the authority. The authority meaning to say the government. The government should take the lead. To take the lead by bringing people together, hey, let us sit down and plan. Plan for the future. Plan for what's going on for next year and the year after. So, next slide, please. So the cultural exchanges. The cultural exchanges is about trading ideas, trading feelings, trading stories. It's about shared feelings. So what are the mechanisms that we can do? So the previous thing that we normally do is about exchange of students, exchange of artists, exchange of athletes between two countries to promote mutual understanding. The usual thing that we do is just about like art residencies, 3 to 6 months. This approach is about immersion. It's about immersing oneself into the host culture. So it's about experiencing it. And then visitation. So you can start seeing that tourism is picking up. People are traveling. This approach is about observation, going to galleries, going to museum, observing it, looking at the host country that you visit to look at their culture. And then participation. Participation is about participating in activities organized by foreign countries, conferences, exhibitions, art expos, art biennale. This is participation. And then, of course, most government, they have their own representative in every country, the cultural diplomacy. It's about approach to one host country through diplomacy, through culture. So we really need that. We really need that understanding of culture so that once the mutual understanding is being built, then the relationship tends to foster. Next slide, please. I'm giving you an example in Malaysia. A friend of mine in a remote village. This is in a village. Art Garden Madi. You can surf in the Facebook, where people from all over the world, from Europe, from South America, come and stay at his place. It's just about a minimal fee. You just pay the fee for food and accommodation is free. But the services that you need to contribute is about helping the people, helping the community, and then it's about sharing. It's about sharing where the host is actually a friend of mine, Ismadi. He's an artist. So he shares his skill through art to the foreigners. So it's about sharing again. So the next slides. So this is where the experiences of the visitors to share with children, to share with students, and exchange. It's about sharing. It's about trading of ideas. It's about trading of experiences. It's about trading knowledge. So the approach is about inam ilmu. Inam ilmu is our language. Inam meaning you stay and sleep for knowledge. The next slide. So hosting art and culture program. Hosting art and culture program, we need to come up with an event, a very impactful event. So this, again, normally we need the government, we need the authority to take the lead, and to come up with an international program. I still remember in the previous meeting that I proposed for Taiwan to come up with a festival of the beads. You know the beads? Beads is something like small thing that you turn it into accessories. Beads is very common in Southeast Asia and certain parts of the world. Beads is in Laos, be it in Cambodia, be it in Vietnam, be it in Thailand, in Philippines, in parts of Malaysia, especially the island of Borneo, and Indonesia, of course. So, if we were to go back to the theory of people around, we can share our DNA. We can share our common ground. So if the festival with the beats can be organized, I think you are bringing people of the same DNA, you are bringing people of the same tradition, you are bringing people with a different experience after the theory of sinking of the Sunda Plateau, that people disperse Taiwan to the Pacific Island, to Vietnam, to Champa, or Indonesia. So this is about, the approach can be practical. We can have a major art and culture exhibition. We can have conferences. We can have galleries to open up their doors. And we have hotel to be involved in the exhibition. And we can have business, corporate to be involved. We want to bring them to be involved. We want them to convince them to look at art as asset rich, investing in the art, at the same time helping young budding artists. And we can provide, the authority can provide the KPI, let's say the exhibition. We will invite young budding artists, students or whatever, to participate in the exhibition, mount the exhibition, exhibit the exhibition, manage the exhibition, and market the artwork. From there, we will train them. So this is very much of an informal approach. It's about building. It's about building them. Then you should look at think culture, act tourism. So when you think about culture, and then the action should be for tourism, targeting inbound and the local bound tourists. So you can see that with this approach, then you can get things moving. You can look at the ecosystem. So the ministry, the next slide, please. The Ministry of Culture should, I know that they have the ecosystem, but can you bring in the ecosystem together? Can you bring in the whole ecosystem of the art and culture together so that we can host a mega program, so that we can have a big project, so that everybody, the whole structure, the whole strata of the society will be involved. And this will bring in more mobility in terms of a local bound and inbound, because this is something big happening. It's about sharing. It's about trading ideas. Something like my experience in Japan and also in Taiwan, the bamboo culture. The bamboo culture, it cut across the tropics from South America, reaches here in Taiwan. In Southeast Asia, of course, bamboo is something very close to us. From bamboo, we create food. From bamboo, we create architecture. From bamboo, and you can see in Hong Kong, they are still using that structure of bamboo as scaffolding, building houses. So you can see that this one particular artist in Taiwan, I forgot his name, he's building three stories kind of sculpture. And he's bringing the whole village to cut the bamboo and build the sculpture, a very big sculpture. That was way back in 2018 or 2019 that I visited one of the gallery. And he is superb. He can be the ambassador from Taiwan. I can offer the space. I have the bamboo around at my space. Then we can organize a program that he works with bamboo and also art in community. It's about looking at usefulness of the bamboo. It's about transforming bamboo. It's about transforming the tradition that we inherit into contemporary context. It's not about turning bamboo into chopstick. It's not about burning bamboo. No, it's about turning bamboo into its usefulness for contemporary context. And you can see in Philippines, the bamboo culture is there. It even creates sounds. In Bolivia, I hear the sound of the flute using bamboo, blowing. I thought this guy playing with the flute using bamboo from Philippines. But no, he's from Bolivia and performing it in Europe, in the streets of Europe. So you can see that this is something that we can share. So the ecosystem must be that. So the MOC can build this ecosystem and strengthening it. And like in Taiwan, the residencies, there's a lot of residencies. I've been there. Even like the art bank is helping the young budding artists, the art bank. The next slide. So when you think about culture and you act tourism, this is actually culture is providing the product for tourism. When you're looking at culture as a product, but most artists doesn't like the idea. No, we are not looking at art as a product. Art as got its aesthetic value. Yes, but for me, I'm looking at art as a commodity because the labor involved in producing the artwork, when labor is involved, raw materials is involved, and then the end product. In your studio, yes, it is art for art's sake. Once the artwork travels from the studio, it got its own price tag. So I'm looking at it as a commodity. So the tourism, actually, we are actually providing the products for the tourists. So the next slide. Culture and tourism convergence. If this can happen, but in most countries, culture and tourism couldn't come together because tourism thinks that they bring and generate a lot of income. But culture is actually the product that create for tourism. So when this happens, when the convergence of culture and tourism, so you are looking at the spin-off from this togetherness, from this convergence of two energy, two platforms. And at the end of the day, it's all about job creation, continuity of tradition into contemporary context, and then the continuity and survival of the young budding artists. My next slide is actually for the prospect for future collaboration. There's a lot of potentials actually. Once we immerse in the foreign culture, we understood, and we can claim that, we know what's happening over there. And it's easier for us to penetrate and communicate. So this is good, again, for businesses and collaborations. And I think we are looking at similarities rather than differences. So if I were to go to Philippines, there's a lot of similarities. The Tagalog language with a lot of similarities with us. Langsanos, we call it langsat, but they add up with the Spanish langsanos, rambutan, and that's because not only with the skin color that we are quite close, but our culture there is a trait of culture that's happening many years ago. Same thing to Indonesia, same thing with Laos, same thing with Vietnam, Thailand. And you can see Thailand is good in exporting their food culture. So you just go everywhere. You just go anywhere in the world, you can see the Thai food. Even yesterday, last night when I arrived at the hotel, Taipei Garden Hotel, I just stepped next door. Oh, a Thai restaurant. A Thai restaurant. So this is how they export their culture through food. But again, it's just about sharing. It's just about enriching. It's just about inspiring any parties. Once you experience like the Thai food, if you go to Thailand, the tom yum is actually originally it's not tom yum, it's Tom Jones actually. So they have changed it, becoming tom yum. So you can see the tom yum, and you eat the tom yum here. The tom yum here has been fine-tuned to the Taiwanese taste. So it's about adjusting. It's just about accommodating. So this is where culture is very important, and thank you for listening. And it's actually, I've taken a lot of your time, and thank you again for the host for allowing me to kick off and jumpstart the program. Thank you.
好，非常谢谢 Najib 刚才的分享，关于疫情间跟疫情后他个人的文化实践，以及他对于建立共享未来艺术生态的建言。那刚刚他也提到了泰国菜，那我们接下来邀请我们的泰国的讲者。我们邀请我们的第2位讲者是来自泰国的 Gridia Gawiwon。那我们在Gridia 准备的同时，我也就Gridia 的背景再多说一些。那刚刚介绍了他是 Jim Thompson Art Center 的策展人、艺术总监。我想在场有很多朋友对他非常熟悉，因为他是当今东南亚最具影响力的策展人之一。那他在1996年在曼谷跟很多泰国艺术家一起共创了一个叫做 Project 304的计划。那这个计划开启了泰国当代艺术的一个新时代。他的策展作品遍及全世界，我想在今天因为每一场只有15分钟，我没有办法细数。那不过最近这几年重要的作品，包括2018年他在光州双年展策展的《想象的边界》，还有2019年，我想很多人都去看过的展览，在台北的北美馆阿比查邦的个展《狂中之境》也是他策划的。那他目前正在进行的一个重要的计划是泰国双年展，这个展览将在2023年揭幕。那也许待会他也会再跟我们分享这个展览什么时候会开始。那他是这个展览的艺术总监。好，那我们就欢迎 Gridia Gawiwon。
谢谢 Thank you so much, and thanks the Ministry of Culture for having us here. I need someone to remind me of time because I forgot my watch. Okay, and thanks for talking about Tom Yum Goong. I think we have more than that to offer to the world. So I just jumped directly to the project that I was assigned to speak about, which is the project that we did with the Hong Art Museum in Taipei, and it happened during COVID. So when people saw the COVID pandemic as a threat, we trying to kind of resist that, as a curator. And I think the threat of COVID become opportunities and possibilities for many artists and curators to explore and initiate a different art project to this new normal. So it allows us to rethink alternative programs to connect and support each other. I don't know if you remember how many times a day and a month, a week that you have to talk with your friends online, discussion and seminars, right? So many people experimenting with digital projects that test their limits. And we at Jim Thompson Art Center were also trying to find solutions. So thanks to the support of the Ministry of Culture and TECO, we start an online residency program and curatorial project between Thailand and Taiwanese artists and institutions. As I mentioned before, my partner here is Hongga Art Museum in Taipei, and we start from 2020 to 2022, and it became a series of online residency program and two-part exhibitions in 2 cities. So part 1, we call it Challenging Times, and online artist residency exchange and research program between Thailand and Taiwan. So what we did was we did a call for entries, and there was about 35 proposals from artists from both cities, both countries, to submit the proposal. And we select only 8 projects. Because we just want to make it more like smaller so people can learn from each other in depth. And the function of 2 museums are more or less like a facilitator and matchmakers. So what we did in the first series when we met each other, we trying to ask the artists, after they sent out us the proposal, most of them are about historical research, which we thought is interesting to share and to learn from each other. So we kind of asked them what do they want to know and what do they want to do in more in-depth research. And then the second part, we invite a specialist, and we call commentator because we are more inspired by music competitions. So most of the time they have commentators, right? But our commentators are composed of scholars, historians, and specialists to provide further information on each artist's research. So we organized more or less like 6 or 7 around 8 times, to kind of, let them meet each other. Next slide, please. So you can see, within 2 months, we create a lot of matching artists and specialists, and then we did a pre-record, because we want to learn about their process as well. And then all the participating Thai artists and Taiwanese are more interested in modern history of Taiwan and Thailand. So we were able to compare the post-war situation in both Thailand and Taiwan during this residency project. And artists from Taiwan also care about the demonstrations taking part in Thailand at that time. So Thai artists helped them to explain the context. So through this project, we could see artists' close interaction to their intention to continue research into social issues. And this is the list of 8 meetings. So here you see in this slides. So this is another kind of the meetings here. This is more like we kind of asked them. We did after they spoke with the commentators, research. So we did the pre-records, and we also did the live streams. As a public presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so the final presentation of the project attracted more than 400 viewers through live broadcast, and a few people, mainly art students, young curators, and artists interested in joining the future residency program, which we joined by the live broadcast session online. So this project has become a new solution to face the post-COVID reality in which the limitation on travel have become normal. Audience recognize Art Center and Hongga Museum for being willing to try different methods to continue culture exchange and cross-cultural communication. So the project also revised several inquiries from artists interested in participating in the future versions. But of course, it's not an ideal. And we know that, it has to be like on site. So this is just for the, during those period of the limitation of we cannot cross the borders. So the outcome of this residency program online. So we create the exhibition at the Jim Thompson Art Center. So next slide, please. And so we have about 8 artists, and then we got 3 curators, young curators from Bangkok, and then 2 curators from Hongga Art Museum. And the title is Shadow Dancing, Where Can We Find the Silver Lining in Challenging Times. So we still keep the ideas of challenging time, because during 2021 and 22, it's still kind of on and off, right? Many countries are really not open the borders. So for us, I think Thailand, we cannot live without tourism. So we know that we will die, and because tourism contributes to a lot of a big portion of GDP to our country. So that's why we're experimenting with the ideas of the Phuket sandbox, right? And for us, at Jim Thompson Art Center and a museum, we totally depend on tourism. They are our main audience. So the exhibition at the Art Center, I want to show you, I just want to go quickly with this. Next slide, please. So here are the installation shot. The 4 artists from Thailand and 4 artists from Taiwan. They come from different cities, not only in Taipei. Next one, please. So this is the new building that we built during COVID, and then we opened the building around the end of 21. The end of 20. And this is the installation shot at the Hong Kong Museum in Taipei. So because the space are not the same size, so the one in Taipei is a little bit like a smaller version. Okay, so I just want to go through quickly about some of the art project that we did, with artists I wanted to focus at the Jim Thompson Art Center. So this is a work by, next slide please, Saurabh Panachai. He's from the Isan area, and he's really interested in the history of KMT, because actually he wanted to come to Taipei and to explore, because he came from Udon, where there's a big base camp of the American army during the Cold War, and he wanted to see the connection with Taiwan. But because he could not join, so he went to the border of Thailand in the north, in Chiang Rai, my hometown. So he saw the KMT, and then he went to the Opium Museum, and this is what he got, the inspiration from the Opium Museum at the Golden Triangle. So he created very interesting installation on the top. And the other one is Ting Ting Chen. She's working with the game and also a kind of interactive installation. The idea is come from her previous work, but she also inspired by the ideas of the utopia, the island that you want to be there, but you can't really reach. And then the next one. This is the work by Saurapat. He's an architect and studied in Weimar, but he got really inspired by the history of the student uprising in both countries. So he went back to the early kind of around 60s and 70s, and because he studied at Chulalongkorn University, and he created a kind of the stage that has a long history of the student. One of the student leaders, he got thrown off from the stage. His name is Jit Pumisak, who became one of very important leftist thinkers for the younger generation. So he created this stage, and then he wrote down all the poems that related to the democratic movement, from the early 20s to now, from Thailand and Taiwan. So he kind of snatched some poet, and some words, that he got. This next one, please. A lot of many artists, from Thailand and also from Taiwan, they're really interested in performing and performance art, and especially Julayanon Sirapun. He kind of explored because he was a filmmaker, and he's really interested in the ideas of how Japanese popular culture were portrayed, and it's kind of signifying the ideas of the Japanese colonization. And then he studied different film which focus around this area. So he kind of personified himself as a woman called Ang Sumalin, which is it came from one of the literatures, very famous, written by right-wing Thai woman, who the protagonist is Japanese soldier who fall in love with the Thai local woman. And then he created this Ang Sumalin 48, which is BKK 48, it's a bit crazy film, but I think people kind of like to be immersed in his kind of universe, but it's really interesting. And then this film, the other one is the work by Yen Yu, and she is interested in the economy history, of Taiwan and Jim Thompson himself, because she kind of use the shadow puppet, as a media, and then portray like one iconic Taiwanese businessman, who started a department store, and he kind of revived the economy after the war, in her hometown, and then she compared with Jim Thompson, what he did with Thailand. Next one, please. Yi Chuan Lin, she's interested in economy, especially the street food, so she compared between Thailand and Taiwan. And then Anka, he's more or less interested in like literatures and words, that he used deep fake techniques, and then create the eerie effect on the sound installation that comprise two parts. The first one is tutorial, is about the visual silent documentation and the climate barbarians and adapted audio, and he's discussed the close relationship between the climate and the language and multiple senses in the face of future crisis. So the last one was very interesting project by an artist. Actually, he is a doctor, and he studied medical in the north of Thailand. Next slide, please. And he's really interested in film. So he proposed us the program, the film program, and he did a very critical analysis on Taiwanese film during the post-war, and then he compared with the Thai films. So he select a few Taiwanese short and features, which is more or less like focus on the history and animism. Okay, so you can run the slides like up and next one, please. So I would like to conclude that in order to summarize like the whole project, like what do we get from this, right? The first one is we encourage mutual understanding, because we cannot travel. So many artists cancel the plan for the overseas residency. So however, through an online residency program, the artists could still propose their research plan and receive assistance from professionals in different disciplines. So many artists in this project, Challenging Times, began to learn more about the modern history of Thailand and Taiwan and found similarities in the post-war situation. Okay, so next slide, please. And what we did was we did expand the artist network building. And because the artists from both countries were introduced to many curators and artists, not only the project participants, but also curators and artists who were not in the project. So that's why we invite a lot more commentators. So with advice and further information that the invited guest speakers, they were able to gradually build up an artist network which can help them to develop their further research and also widen the influence of each artist project. Next slide, please. So the last one for me, is it's about the post-COVID art scene study, because we got a lot of contact from different newspaper organization, to interview us about how can you do online residency program, which is quite crazy idea, right? So for us, I think besides the project, the online residency and the exhibition, we also can experimenting with artists and curatorial practice after the COVID-19. So some artists started to compose projects with a borderless structures and imagine a bigger global audience pool. An art project realized entirely online has become a new solution, even though it's not an ideal. So thus the project provides a possibility to discover a brand new era of the post-COVID art scene. So next slide, please. And I think that's it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. 谢谢。
Two more slides.
可以，好，那个幻灯片。好，谢谢
Thank you.
Gridia。好，谢谢 Gridia，分享了这么有创意的在疫情期间的线上驻村计划。那在这样子的一个计划，其实突破了疫情的边界的封锁这样子的限制，然后让艺术家能够持续保持创作的能量，还有卷动台泰艺术家的对话。谢谢，非常谢谢他。那接下来，我想我们第3位讲者，然后也很谢谢讲者们。努力的控制时间，我知道有3年的 工作，有非常多经验的分享，非常谢谢他们。那第3位讲者是 Patrick Flores， 在他在做技术准备的同时，我也在多说一些关于Patrick 的背景。那 Patrick 是我想现在可以说是亚洲当代艺术策展领域一位非常重要的且非常知名的策展人。那他现在在菲律宾大学的艺术研究系任教，那同时也是新加坡国家美术馆的副馆长。那他也担任菲律宾当代艺术网络的总监。他的著作非常的多，那我就是把基本非常重要的，我想对菲律宾当代艺术史来说非常重要的著作快速的介绍一下。那他的重要的出版著作包括《绘画史》、修订菲律宾殖民艺术，这是1999年出版的。那2008年的《往日边陲》策展在东南亚，2015年的《战后艺术1948到1969》。以及2017年的雷阿尔巴诺文本。那待会Patrick 他会从资源、虚拟展览、教育、档案建立跟储存几个面向来跟我们分享他的经验。那我们欢迎 Patrick Flores。
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chef Fong, for the introduction, and thank you to the Ministry of Culture for the invitation and hospitality. I understand that this panel would like to discuss artistic exchange in the context of the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. While I do agree that exchange is vital in the survival of any institution that seeks to be part of a lively conversation across contexts, I also take note of the need for self-reflection in light of the crisis of well-being brought about by a relentless virus. If the pandemic taught us anything, it is the fact that we must always constantly remind ourselves of what we have in our possession and how we have responded to various situations over time through our internal resources. That's why the title of this presentation is Internal Resources, no matter how limited they are. I would like to focus on how we had turned inward to find a position to reach out during the pandemic at the Vargas Museum, of which I was director before I moved to as the National Gallery Singapore. In a sense, the pause that the pandemic had offered helps us rethink what it takes to produce and what it means to overproduce. So I think this concept of overproduction should also be discussed. What a viable program constitutes and how content is framed within an institutional form compromised by a planetary emergency, and how the habits of a structure need to mutate after they have been rendered sometimes helpless by the pandemic, which disrupted supply chains, constrained mobility and access, and prevented museum professionals to pursue their projects on schedule. Many of the strategies I will mention are not new or that we already know about them. The point I am making is that self-sufficiency does not mean isolation, and that enhancing the integrity of internal resources will ensure the integrity of exchange in whatever form it takes. This integrity, for me, forms the immune system and stamina, as well as the scale and the rhythm of our everyday practice and aspirations for transformation and proposals for cultural exchange. So that's how I introduce this talk. So next slide. So just maybe a context of the University Museum. The Vargas Museum is in the University of the Philippines. It's a university museum. Next slide. So the university is the University of the Philippines in Diliman, in the northern part of Metro Manila. The university was established by the Americans in 1908, and over time has played a central role in the history of activism in the Philippines. Next slide. So the museum, as a university museum, is a unique platform because we identify in the phrase university museum two of modernity's important legacies. The museum with an intellectual community and of course the university. The university, which is an intellectual community, and the museum, which is a medium of representation. So the museum within an intellectual community, the museum is in the intellectual community and is the producer of knowledge, and a museum as a producer of representation. But the curator and the thinker Clementine Delis would like to flip the university museum into the concept of the museum university, which I find very interesting. In this situation, the museum becomes an intellectual community in itself, at the same time that the university thinks and acts like a museum. So it is interdisciplinary, it is critical, and of course in the spirit of the university collective. So anyway, this is a guiding aspiration for me as a curator of the University Museum, to aspire to that condition of the museum university. Next slide. So the donor of the collection of the museum is Jorge Vargas, and we see here some pieces from the collection. So I integrate within the collection works of contemporary art. So there's always a conversation between the collection and the contemporary art, so that the collection is activated by the present, and then the present is also rooted in a historical context. So there's this conversation between the contemporary and the collection. Next slide. And also the archive. So there are three layers in the museum. The first layer is the collection. The second layer is contemporary art, and the third layer is the archive. The Vargas is also a research center, so it has an archive of materials from the American and Japanese periods in the Philippines. Next slide. Jorge Vargas was a political figure in two colonial governments in the Philippines, the American government and the Japanese government. He was also involved in international sports, specifically the Asian Games in the 50s, and also the Boy Scout movement. So these forms of internationalism inform the context of the curatorial framework of the museum. So the biography, the social biography of Vargas is not separate from the thinking through of what the museum, how the museum should be curated, because the biography already offers entry points into the international as well as the national, through sports, art, and scouting. Of course, he was, next slide, a collector. So this was these were the pieces in the collection, in the compound, in the house of Vargas before they were transferred to the university in the 80s. We opened in 1987, but the collection was transferred to the university in the 70s. Vargas was an alumnus of the university, and at one point served as a member of the Board of Regents, and was part of the first class of the College of Law in the university. Next slide, please. So these strategies include virtual circulation. I think we know what this means. The syllabus, the collection is part of the curriculum and syllabus of humanities and art history students in the University of the Philippines. So I view the Vargas as a teaching museum, in the same way that we view certain, in the same way that we look at an institution like the teaching hospital, for instance. So I view Vargas as a teaching museum. Next slide. So because the students didn't have access to the museum physically, the pandemic gave us the chance or pressured us to produce a virtual tour in 2 languages, in Filipino and in English, and we invited more well-known alumni to offer their services for the voiceover. So the woman is a member of parliament, and the man is a movie actor. Yeah. So this is a virtual tour. This is just to attract the students to actually use to avail of the option. Next slide. Sustained pedagogy. This is very important for the Vargas as a university museum. For every next slide. For every exhibition, we do quite a thorough study guide online, and also before it was available as hard copy. No? So we continued with this project. No? Next slide. Remote internship. I think this was already mentioned by Gritia. We had the interns of the museum are students, but we couldn't gather them physically. So we had workshops online. So we had remote internship. Next slide. So we have this, we had, I think, 2-3 batches of them. No? Very interesting outcome of the work from home interns, no? Developing materials for the museum during the pandemic. No? Next slide. Archive and research. So we, one of the internal resources of the Vargas is, of course, it's archive and research of exhibition history. So we looked into the archive and curated some exhibitions, no? Through the research. Next slide. So we had these modules that we circulated based on our internal resources. So we everything is from the museum, no? Whether collection or previous exhibitions. So we had these modules, no, on circulating on a regular basis. So we mined the resources, the internal resources of the museum, so that they became the content, the primary content during COVID, because there was no chance to do physical exhibition. The archive became primary content. So this was also an interesting concept curatorially for a university museum. Next slide. And then we also attempted to revisit the collection. We had 2 exhibitions to look at the collection again. The first exhibition was, next slide, the nature of the collection. So we tried to ventilate the collection again, to bring them out of storage and to study the pieces again in a new light. And then the second exhibition was, next slide, the work of art. Yeah, also an effort to revisit the collection. So these revisits to the collection were independent of the permanent display. No? So these were like temporary exhibitions that revisited the pieces from the storage. No? So I think this is a good time to bring pieces out of storage and to subject them to a new discursive reflection. Yeah. Next slide. A Proto-Para Rethinking Curatorial Work was an online curatorial development workshop that we did with the Japan Foundation. So the curatorial development workshop by the Vargas has been going on for 10 years. So we had this iteration during the pandemic called Proto-Para, focusing on what comes before and what comes alongside the exhibition. That the exhibition should not be seen as the main aspect of curatorial work. That curatorial work also involves the proto, meaning the research, and also the para, meaning the supplemental program that runs parallel with the exhibition. So we tried to redistribute the energies of curatorial work across various aspects, no? Of research, programming, and of course exhibition making. Next slide. So this is the example of that exhibition. I curated one segment on an artist, Filipino artist, a modernist who stayed in Paris for almost 4 decades. Next slide. And this is on that artist. Next slide. And then there was a public screening by one of the members of the Philippine Contemporary Art Network. So there was this a public screening. It's not exactly an exhibition. So this is like a para-curatorial effort. And of course, there is this exhibition on the zines, history of zines in the country, because the zine also played an important role in kind of activism during the pandemic. Yeah. Next slide. And then finally, my last part is the environment, because there was strict protocol against indoor visits, right? Because of the protocol on the social distancing. So we tried to enhance the capacity of the environment, what is around the Vargas. So next slide. So we set up the installation of Junyi, who is a pioneer installation artist in the Philippines and also Southeast Asia. So here at the Vargas grounds, he set up an installation called Quarantine, to comment on the quarantine conditions during COVID. Next slide. So we thought that the public can access this because they don't have to go inside, so the protocol is not violated. So we thought there should be more outdoor programs for Vargas because we have the space for it. Next slide. And we are also inspired by Vargas. When Vargas had a garden in his compound where the collection was housed before it transferred to the UP. Next slide. So he grew a garden around the art. So I thought maybe we should also do that at the Vargas, to grow a garden around the art. So I asked the staff, next slide, to develop a vegetable and herb garden in the empty spaces of the museum. So these are two staff members who help us clean the museum, so they became the gardeners of our modest effort to enhance the environment, also as a site of our curatorial work. Next slide. So this is it. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. 好，谢谢 Patrick。然后我也要对现场观众说抱歉，因为把3年的经历要浓缩成15分钟，实在是太困难了。然后我自己作为一个主持人，没有很好的把时间没有做的时间管理做得非常不好。那无论如何，我想透过刚刚三位的分享，我们知道疫情带来的是某一种我们工作惯性的阻断或是冲击，但是它同时也激发了创意跟可能性，以及刚才讲者们提到在策展上面的反思跟历史的重新阅读跟重访。那我想疫情确实有这样的两面性。那后疫情时代，我们现在来到了后疫情时代，无论在展览空间或是在串流的工具的演进下，我想视觉艺术的策展已经呈现了一个新的意涵。策展这个字有了新的意涵或是新的可能性。那今天这一场讲座，我相信会带我们不仅仅是台湾跟东南亚，我想艺术作为一个在现场所有人的共同的 DNA， 那我想我们都会走向一个更为多元还有更多可能的一个 未来的艺术空间。那我觉得在现在这个时代是一个非常困难的时代，我也相信我们只有艺术可以带我们继续前进。然后谢谢3位讲者，然后我也要抱歉，是我们原本有很珍贵的10分钟的时间，让现场观众跟他们交流。那因为时间没有控制好，所以我们今天就把这个提问的时间取消。那但是委员们还会继续在这个现场，那待会大家如果有兴趣，也可以跟委员们做交流。好。OK， 好，那我想我们这一场的第1场的论坛就在这里结束。也要对各位委员说抱歉。I apologize for my bad management of time as a host. Thank you very much for your sharing. Thank you very much.
好，谢谢第1场的那个委员哈。那我们第二场，因为我们现场要来 set 那个传音越南才子乐团的表演的一个场地，所以暂时休息5分钟。那5分钟之后，请各位再回来，谢谢。